The Dark Knight doesn't require any introduction from me. Suffice it to say, it was a very popular, very successful, both commercially and critically, film. And of course, one of the standout performances in that film was Heath Ledger's Joker. And I've been fortunate enough to finally get my hands on the 1/6 scale DC Direct Joker figure. Looking at the packaging, you can see we have this oversized box. The art style is pretty simple and straightforward. We have the logo of the Dark Knight at the top of the box there. We have that big gradient effect going from the blue to the black at the bottom of the packaging. And then we have this rather large image of the figure itself. It's not the most colourful or most impressive artwork I've ever seen on packaging of this type before, but that said, I think it's pretty displayable. It's still quite presentable. The side panel of the packaging is, again, a bit underwhelming, a little bit disappointing. It just has the Dark Knight logo, it has the name of the character, and of course what this actual figure is, and it feels like there's a bit of a wasted opportunity here to have some really nice artwork on the side of this to really make it pop if you decide to display this on its side on a shelf, say, but sadly it is a little bit bland. Things start to improve with the reverse of the packaging though. We have a little bit of bio about the character, which is good, and then we have this really nice stylistic chiaroscuro lighting photograph of the figure itself in action. This looks quite impressive. I think even though it's quite simple and straightforward, I think this is a quite striking image. But I think the best presentation is saved for the actual interior of the packaging. When we open this flap, this gatefold flap here, we have on the left hand side this nice image, again another photograph of the figure in action, but we have this really nice backdrop as well, which really helps the figure pop, and it looks really nice on display. Then of course on the right hand side we have that window display where we can see the figure in all its glory, and the inlay behind the figure again is that consistent blue and white, which really helps the figure just jump out of the packaging, if you will, and it looks really good where we can see all those various accessories here, and this looks really exciting and fun. I think they've done a nice job of the interior of this packaging. And I have to say, the figure himself, once he's liberated from the packaging, is really good. He's very impressive. I really like the look and feel and texture of this figure. I think they've done a pretty nice job of him all in all. I think they've done a pretty solid job when it comes to the head sculpt. I think we can easily recognise that this is Heath Ledger's Joker. There's a lot of detail in here, lots of various lines in the forehead and around the face there, and there's a little bit of texture and detailing as well when it comes to the scars on the lips. I think they've done a pretty nice job of this. Likewise, the paint apps are really nicely applied. We can see a lot of bleed in the mascara around the eyes is particularly effective. It looks like it's bleeding through the skin, which is great. I think they've done a really nice job of capturing the look and feel of this character, and I do like the attention to detail, the level of care that's gone into this when it comes to the different paint washes they've used to just really enhance it, make it look authentic and realistic. Particularly in the hair, for example, we can see a number of different colours in there, which looks pretty screen accurate, and I think they've done a very nice job of this. Then of course we have the tailoring, and the first thing you're going to notice is of course his big purple overcoat. They've done a very nice job of this. It closes quite snugly, it looks really fitted, it fits him absolutely perfectly, which is brilliant. It looks just the way it should, so I really like this. I also like that when we open it up he has that inner lining there as well, that silk lining, which looks really good, and pleasingly you'll see there's multiple layers. So he's got multiple jackets, of course he's got his waistcoat there, each one is made of a slightly different material, and it's really quite nicely textured. And underneath all of this we have a tie and his shirt as well, and again this is pretty accurate to what we see on screen. It's done a very nice job of capturing the pinstripe on the trousers and that sort of diamond effect silk shirt. All in all, there's plenty going on here that is visually interesting. One of the things that did feel a little bit clumsy though, a bit of a misfire, was the pockets. These are fake pockets and they do look a little bit sloppy and underwhelming really. I do really like the cuffs, so we have those open cuffs at the bottom and each one has its own individual buttons, which I think is a very nice touch. Obviously these aren't functioning buttons, they're just too small for that, and there's just not that level of care here, but it does look very nice, and again it looks pretty screen accurate, which is great. The shoes are nicely sculpted and well painted, and it's nice that we have real shoelaces here. However, I did notice that sadly he doesn't have any socks. I'm not sure if this is a peculiar detail from the film that perhaps I've missed, but it kind of feels like he should have had socks here. Now, in terms of articulation, he does have a ball joint in the head, which means he can spin his head from side to side and of course move it up and down. I must point out that there is a slight hindrance to being able to really make the most of this when it comes to moving the head up and down because of the hard plastic hair piece at the back of the head there, he can't really bend it too far back, so that is something to be aware of. But otherwise, no problem being able to move it all the way around. He does have ball joints in the shoulders, so of course he can lift his arms up and out to the side, which is fantastic. He's got an upper bicep swivel as well, so he can rotate that upper arm around, which is fantastic. Then of course he does have double joints at the elbow, so he can bend that arm right the way back to his head there, although obviously being aware that the thick coat is quite a thick material, so you are going to struggle a little bit there. Then he does have a peg at the wrist, so he can only really use this as a swivel to rotate that wrist around. It can't hinge forwards and backwards. He does have a ball joint in the ab section though, so he can move from side to side, he can lean left and right, and of course he can also bend forwards and backwards. There's more ball joints in the hips, so he can kick his legs out to the side. There's also an upper thigh swivel as well, meaning he can spin his upper leg from side to side, which is fantastic. And of course his legs also kick forwards and backwards. This is all complemented by another double joint at the knee, so he can kick his lower legs right the way back there, which is fantastic. And then a final pin swivel at the ankle, allowing the foot to hinge forwards and backwards, but also rotate 360 degrees. As you might hope, he does come with a whole host of extra goodies in terms of accessories, including an additional 2 pairs of hands, 2 closed fists and 2 open hands, a pistol and clip, 3 individual unique knives, a clown mask, and playing cards. I do think the clown mask is a really cool addition. It is an integral prop from the film, which is really cool, and it is very nicely sculpted and painted, exactly as you would hope. It does have this elastic string on the back of it, but you can't really put this over the figure's face, so I'm not quite sure why we have that. I also want to point out that these hands do have this peg hole here, which is how they connect to the wrist, so as you can see there's not really much room for articulation, and they're made of a sort of soft rubber, so they're slightly malleable in that you can bend the fingers open. But I have to say the closed hands that are made for gripping things work perfectly well when it comes to the knives, and really tight grips, so things like the cards for example works really well. It doesn't really work so well with the gun. No matter how hard I tried to get this into his hand, there was just this feeling that I was just bending the fingers too far, and I just didn't want to destroy their nice tight grip, so it never felt like it really comfortably fitted into his grip nice and snugly the way it should, and always looks a little bit clunky no matter what I tried with this really. And if I tried the same thing with the open hand, again I wasn't really having much success. It could kind of just about rest in there, but it doesn't look proper, it doesn't look like it fits, and of course there's a real danger that this is going to fall out his grip at any moment. And as you can see, whilst the knife looks really good, nice and tight in his grip there and looks really cool, the gun just looks a little bit clumsy and a little bit silly somehow. Which is a shame, because I do think this is quite a nice prop all in all. The gun is nicely moulded, nicely sculpted, and of course it has really nice paint apps as well. We have that silver barrel, which is really cool, and we have that silver clip, and again we can see the bullet at the top of the clip there. This is a nice little detail to have, and the clip fits snugly into the chamber there, which looks pretty cool, and all in all this looks really nice. Of course the barrel does also pull back as well, which is great, so again this is a nice prop, and it's just a shame you can't hold it. Likewise, as I mentioned, I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to do with the clown mask. As a prop it just looks a little bit too large, a little bit too clunky there if he's just holding it in his grip. You can try and persevere and put this over his head, but it looks very wrong basically. It doesn't really quite work, so it seems a little bit misjudged, this prop. The knives, on the other hand, all look really good. They all have nice individual sculpts, they're all very nicely painted, and they all fit very snugly into his grip, which is great. And I have to say, surprisingly, he is able to hold those playing cards incredibly well. And I have to say they're probably my favourite prop of the lot, because he does hold them so well, and it just looks really striking. Whatever he's doing with them always looks fantastic. So I'd say this is actually my favourite prop, and it works surprisingly well just because it's so small and you think it would fall through his grip, but thankfully, though, that grip there is pretty tight. So all things considered, certainly this has massive highs and lows. There's things they got really, really right. I think they've done a fantastic job of the tailoring on this outfit in particular. I really like some of the props he's got, particularly the knives and the pistol and the playing cards, all are really nice, very finely detailed props, which is excellent. The head sculpt is really strong as well. So all this is going in its favour, but it's just let down a little bit by some of the little finer details, really, like being able to hold the pistol is kind of a big problem when you want to put this on display. And another issue for me is those pockets, and it's such a little silly thing that could have been easily avoided. But all in all, I do really like this figure. I'm very, very glad to finally have him in my collection. I think he's a really nicely made, well-intentioned 1/6 scale figure. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.